Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, a new way to handbell. My name is Brenda Austin, and it is my sincere hope that through connecting with us today, you will be inspired to use handbells to make a difference, to add value to our world. Let's get out there and bring the ring. Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, where we are connecting with each other and connecting with handbell composers to talk about handbells, to talk about how we can use handbells to impact our world, to add value to others, to make a difference. Today we welcome Ron Mallory. Ron lives near Seattle in Maple Valley, Washington. He lives there with his wife Emily and his three beautiful children. He's a music educator, teaching handbells at Forest Ridge School of the Sacred Heart. Ron has over 200 pieces in print and has won multiple composition contests. He is a total science and astronomy nerd, which I love. But above all, Ron is one of the most sincere and warm individuals I have ever met. So let's welcome Ron Mallory. Hey, Ron, how are you and your beautiful family?
We're doing great. Hanging in there like everybody else. Hope you're doing well also.
Very good. I was able to go and meet Ron and his family a little like a year ago, and I asked him to send me a picture so you can see his three awesome kids.
This is a picture of us at Disneyland that was actually back in February of this year. I grew up in Southern California. My parents still live there, so we go visit on a regular basis. And we happened to be down there in February and went to Disneyland just a couple of weeks before everything shut down. So we're lucky that we got some fun experiences like that in.
I'm a little bit jealous, but glad that you were able to do that. I want to talk to you today about your arrangement of A Million Dreams. I did it with my community ensemble and I loved it. Tell us a little bit about how this came to be. How did this title come about for you?
Yeah, as you know, I write a fair amount of kind of pop and rock and Broadway handbill arrangements, which most of the ones that I do are by request. I work with two high school handbill ensembles, and like you mentioned, last year we were very fortunate to have you come out and do a workshop with them, which the students really enjoyed. But I always try to give the students some voice in the repertoire that we do every year for our concerts. And it's always interesting to me. Sometimes I have a group of students who's really into classical music or really into Broadway or really into rock oldies. But most of the time there's some contemporary pop song that they really want to play on handbells. And I tell them they're fortunate that they have a director who's also a composer arranger. So if there's something they want to do that's not available, I can put it together for them. And a number of years ago, I also directed a community handbell choir, the Rainier Ringers, in Tacoma. I haven't been directing them for the last several years, but I've kept a relationship up with them in kind of an informal composer in residence capacity. And a couple of years ago, they were planning a concert theme that was all about kind of joy and optimism and dreams. And they asked for this arrangement of A Million Dreams from the movie The Greatest Showman. At the time, I hadn't yet heard the song, and nor seen the movie, but I downloaded it on iTunes so I could have my own digital copy to listen to. And I just really loved the song, loved all the textures of the song, loved the message of the lyrics. And after I wrote the arrangement, I did see the movie, but really enjoyed putting that arrangement together for them.
I know that you've done a lot of pop music, and I have found when I've done it, like some of them don't translate well to bells, but this one absolutely does. What about this piece do you think helps it just really sound great on the instrument?
Yeah, it's always kind of an interesting challenge adapting pop and rock music for handbells. I sort of enjoy just the intellectual challenge of how do you take a piece that often is accompanied by guitar and bass and drums, which are played so differently from the way that we play handbells, and how do you try to take that sound and translate it to a very different sort of instrument. And some pieces work better than others. If it's a pop song that's got more of a piano-based accompaniment, sometimes that's a little bit easier to adapt. just, because piano is a little bit more similar to the way that we play bells. But one of the biggest challenges in arranging pop and rock songs for handbells is the fact that in a lot of pop songs, if it's got a typical pop song structure, like, verse, verse, chorus, chorus, a lot of the time the accompaniment might be pretty similar on all of the verses, and the song relies on the changing lyrics to add interest to the song. But of course, if you're doing an instrumental version, you don't have the lyrics, so you have to find other ways to keep the song interesting all the way through, so it's not just, repetitive setting of the same verse over and over. So there's lots of ways you can do that by moving the melody into different registers, using different techniques. So I always enjoy finding ways to put all that together. With something like A Million Dreams, I think it adapted really well because the accompaniment, because it's more of a kind of pop Broadway or movie musical piece, it's got an orchestral accompaniment. There's piano and strings and lots of other textures in there that inspire a lot of different things that you could do with the bells. There's also a lot of different things happening vocally. If you know the song in the movie, it starts off with P.T. Barnum as a young man singing, or as a child singing, and then as an older man, his wife sings a verse. So there's a lot of different textures and instruments and voices in there, which made it a lot easier to adapt it for handbells. In fact, the biggest challenge with a piece like that is there's so much going on in the piece instrumentally, that it's tempting to want to throw everything in and get every single note of the original recording into the handbell arrangement. And you do that and you automatically end up with a level 6+ that nobody can play. So with a piece like this, the challenge really is, what do I leave out? How do I simplify it enough so that it still has the spirit and energy of the original, but is performable on handbells?
Yeah, and I think you absolutely did that. I mean, it's challenging, but it's not overly challenging, but it absolutely captures the piece. I mean, the very first time when you sent it to me, it just captured me that you had done such a good job of bringing that song to life and to handbells. And I think you're the perfect person to be writing for pop music because of your creative abilities, that you love that challenge of, I don't want every verse to sound the same, so what can I do here? And I think you're the perfect person for that. You're just creative minded like that.
Thank you. I've also had quite a bit of background in kind of pop, rock, jazz. I actually started off college as a jazz performance major, originally thought of kind of going more in that direction. I've played, with rock bands, not a ton, but enough as an instrumentalist that I kind of understand that sound world and I understand the characteristics of it. So I can take what I've learned in my jazz and my rock studies and import that into my work as a handbell arranger.
I believe from our conversations before that when we've talked that you really enjoy studying film scores and you have a passion for that as well. So how does that influence your compositional style?
Yeah, I think there's so much great film music out there. I think some of the best orchestral music written over the last 100 years has been music written for film. You look back at music history in the early 20th century, orchestral music got so kind of experimental and weird, and I love a lot of the different things that people came up with, the Arnold Schoenbergs and Bartok and John Cage and all of them, but I think it got so out there that that's why you saw this rise of interest in jazz and rock and pop music, because orchestral music was so strange that it lost its audience. But I think film music, during that same time, while there are a lot of film composers that are kind of pushing the boundaries and trying some really interesting experimental stuff, they also have to keep it accessible enough to fit within what's going on in the movie. So again, you listen to some of the great film scores. You've got the old composers like Bernard Herrmann, Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, all the way up to people today like Michael Giacchino, Christoph Beck, doing some really amazing creative orchestral stuff. I think it's such a great genre, and I think the other reason it appeals to me is because I love telling a story with music. Almost every original composition of mine, I've got some kind of an image or some kind of a story that I'm trying to convey. And of course, film music ties into that really well because film music is part of this narrative, is part of this story. So I think that's part of the appeal of it for me too.
All the different things that we listen to influence us as musicians and as composers. So, and I think over the score study of film scores gets overlooked.
Yeah, people often don't think to listen to a film score as its own independent piece of music. And I think, the greatest film scores, while they're obviously intended to be part of a story and to go along with the visuals, the best film scores you can listen to as just an independent piece of music. And it's great just as its own composition.
Well, let's listen to A Million Dreams, a little segment from The Greatest Showman.
Yeah, the opening of this piece in the original recording, it's mostly high piano, so that will figure adapted really well for bells. When the vocal comes in on the original recording, if you've seen the movie, it starts off with P.T. Barnum as a young boy singing about his hopes and dreams for the future. I used the hand chimes on the melody to just give a little bit of a lighter sound. And then later on in the piece, when it switches to the adult P.T. Barnum, played by Hugh Jackman, singing with this big full voice, I switched to bells on the vocal line. We're in the first chorus here, which comes back later. The piano figure comes back in over the top. Now we're leading up to the next chorus. At this point, it was starting to get repetitive enough. I switched to mallets to change up the sound. Kind of matches the sound of the arco articulated strings there on the original recording. Point where the adult P.T. Barnum takes over and you hear the bigger sound, so I switch to the bells. Here's a point where in the original, in the movie, P.T. Barnum's wife is singing, talking about how she wants to join in his dreams with him. So again, switched to, for most of the rest of the piece, the chimes are on her part, and then the bells are on the P.T. Barnum part, just to give a different sound between those two voices. You sort of hear this duet happening between the chimes and the bells, just like you hear a duet between the male and the female voice on the original. We're building up to our big finale. Soft ending on the original. With a little bit of the opening figure brought back to finish it off.
Awesome. Yeah, just so well done. I can see the movie in front of me. I mean, you just did such a great job of taking that piece and really representing it well. It's not a watered down version of it. It's the piece as it was in the movie, and I enjoyed working on it with my groups and can't wait to perform it very soon. So what advice would you have for directors as they're preparing this piece for concert or performance?
Yeah, I think with a piece like this that's based on a song that's got an original recording from the movie, I would say definitely become familiar with the original recording. I would, even if you've seen the movie, in the movie the song. So if you can find online the entire recording, all the way straight through, that way you get an idea of what types of orchestral sounds I was trying to imitate with the handbell version, and you kind of know what sound you're going for. Also listen to the lyrics, of course, the message of the lyrics, so that you know the message and the theme that you're trying to convey. One challenge always in performing a piece like this, of course, in handbells, where we each have our individual bell and chime notes, is to try to work together so that we sound like one voice. Because in the original performance, this is one singer at a time who's singing. We need to try to phrase as though we are one voice. Try to think, where would the end of the phrase be? Where would the singer breathe? Where would the singer maybe swell a little bit and then bring it back down? So be working together to collectively sound like Hugh Jackman's voice when you're performing this.
Yeah, great advice. Because to bring out those melody lines and to be able to hear Hugh Jackman singing as you're playing it, it's great advice. We worked on, when we had the malleted section, to not have it sound so machine gun like, but to still have those be kind of like a strong and weak emphasis, so we still had a good chung 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 chung, as opposed to just machine gun da 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 da. So
yeah, absolutely. And if you, a lot of the times in kind of pop arrangements or things like this, mallets are used to imitate the sound of the drums, which isn't just one drum over and over. If you've got a drum set, it's the kick drum, the snare drum, and the hi-hat. So like you said, having some strong beats and some weaker beats is very important to give that same feel. So instead of just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and always driving towards that next strong beat.
Well, I hope that folks will check out Ron's Million Dreams. He's got many pop arrangements that are awesome, sprinkled all over the handbell world. And I think he does a great job of bringing to life these fun pop arrangements. So, Ron, thank you for being here today and for chatting with us about it. Always love connecting with you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today. Brenda Austin is the handbell editor for Hope Publishing, where we are equipping musicians for excellence. Visit hopepublishing.com or call 1-800-323-1049 for all your music needs. For questions about this episode of Bring the Ring, contact Brenda at brenda@hopepublishing.com. Our show notes can be found on our Facebook page or in the comments below.